Hi and welcome to Manny's Makings. Today I'm gonna show you another finishing technique using the square loom, and I just done something similar to my last video, so please check up in the corner and check out the last video if you haven't seen it, where I show you how to warp the loom. I show you how to do the beading. This has a few more beads on it width-wise. It's 9 beads wide instead of 5. There's a little bit of a pattern in the sort of centerpiece. You know, nothing spectacular, but yeah, it's there. So I want to show you, when one of the things I said is if you're working with more beads that you have, I'm going to just pull this down on the loom because it's too high up. So let me just pull this all down here. There we go. Much easier. Okay, so when you're working with more beads, you have to do a couple of passes, and that becomes a bit of an issue for some people. So, and this is as tight as I can get in. Sorry, folks. I'm just going to see if I can make it look beautiful. Okay, so I'm just going to pick up my beads, and my next row I know is black, black, and this is my last row, so I'm showing you my last row. Black, black, and then it's blue, red, orange, red, and I'm doing the same thing as I did before with the chevron. I just reversed the chevron going back down, and I can show you that when I take it off. I can explain a little bit further. But so I have my beads on like I had before, and I'm going to bring them up from the back, and I'm just putting one bead in each space. Okay, just shoving them up from the back, and my warp threads are getting a little loose at this point. So this needle would go through all of them, but I tend to would split these cords, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to go through 3 or 4. I can go through 4 comfortably and still see my needle between them. You can't see it, but, and then I take my thumb and I'm holding it against. So do it again. So I'll just do a couple of beads. Not that I would probably do another 4 or so, but we'll just do 2. So I have 2 more beads, and then I take my thumb and put it where the thread is, and then I pull, so it pulls against that. So, and then I would take these last 3, 1, 2, 3, making sure I'm staying above the warp threads. Take my thumb and pull, and then I'm going to do my cinch up, making sure that it's all laying good. So this is my last row of beads that I need. I'm doing a different type of closure, which is I'm going to use a snap closure, and I'm actually going to do a twisted sort of dangle or tassel, sort of like at the end of a scarf, but it's going to be twisted, that when you put it on your bracelet, the tassels will hang down. So you'll have seen that at the beginning of the video, so I just, you know, showing you how to do it. So now I like to work these last couple a couple of times, and I need to figure out which side is longer, has more thread. So I'm going to move this back so you can sort of see the pattern as I go. So this is the chevron pattern going up that I showed you before, and then I did just a geometric pattern. I just played around with the beads, and then I did the pattern backwards. So wherever I left here, I just started repeating these rows backwards until I had my pattern set up. You can actually turn your loom around and loom it the other way if you want to go the other way, so that you're, you know, working downwards. If it's easier, just turn your loom around. And if you want to do a pattern in the middle of something, you could start in the middle, very middle row, and then work one way, and then just copy what you did the one way on the other way. So this is my piece that I've got on my loom, and I've got, I know you can't see my full, I can't back it out much farther than this, but I have 7 3/4 inches you know, on here. I could probably go a little bit longer. I need a 7.5-inch finish piece, or a little bit longer than that, so that I can do the closure that I want. So I'm going to show you how I do that, and then what I'm going to do is just going to work this thread in and out of here a few times to sort of, you know, I'm going to come through the second one here and then back through the first one and then back through the second one and the third one. And I just want to get at least 2 sets of threads here. And I want to make sure that I cut the one end that I know that I have the most length left of, but before I hit the knots on the back side here, I want to make sure that I cut closest to the knots on that side. I can have less thread here. Let me just zoom out. That might make it easier for when I'm explaining here. Okay, so this is what I've got on my, so and my knots are back here. So this end is closer to these knots than this end is. So I'm going to cut here closest to the knots that I have on the back so that I have as much possible to fringe here, because I can cut off the excess, but you know, this allows me, and this is going to be enough length to do what I want to do. What you want to do is you want to take your normal wrist size that you want to make your finished bracelet, which in my case is 7.5 inches, and then you need to have another 1/2 inch on your piece so that you have enough to do. I'm going to do a snap closure underneath the fringe, so it's going to be lots of fun. And you're also going to see how I do a leather back closure on the other side. So you're actually going to see 2 different closures. I'm going to show you the leather back closure in another video where I do a button closure. So there's lots of different like styles of closures for sure. So let me get this off the loom and then we can start with what we do now. Okay. Okay. So I finished my lovely bracelet. It's off the loom. I've let it rest. I'm, you know, still making sure it's worked out. So, you know, you pat your beads. If you're doing things with like Nymo or 1G, especially because it's a stretchy thread, or KO, that kind of stuff. KO does have a stretch to it. Any kind of thread, if you're using thread rather than like this cotton that doesn't have a stretch, you're not supposed to use stretch, but a lot of people use, even Nymo is not supposed to stretch. It has a little bit of a stretch. If you've used that and you've warped, you know, warped a whole piece with it and you've loomed a whole piece with it, you'll notice that your loom will be looser than it was at the beginning. And that is because it, you know, it does stretch. And so you need to allow it to stretch back. And so if you've done that, give your loom overnight, to your loomed piece overnight to relax. The beads aren't going to magically roll off, and we've double stitched through the ends with both the, you know, on both ends, and as you can see. So I have the one end and I've got myself a couple of things. One is a snap, and I'm going to use a silver snap in this case, and it's a number 10 Newly snap. It's, you can buy it at any kind of sewing store, even the dollar store. It's 9mm snap. So because it's a nice size for this size bracelet. So if you've got a really wide bracelet, you may want 2 snaps, or you may want to have you know, 1 big snap. Your choice. Just know that you have to figure out the snap. You need at least 2 rows of beads that there's no snap being sewn in, and so then you need the distance of the snap, and 2 rows of beads more would be your total for how many beads you need to overlap. So give or take, that's what you're looking for, so that it'll overlap the way that you want it to overlap. So if you're using a bigger snap, then you need to have much more beads to overlap. So that you have to figure that in your recipe. So use your bracelet size plus a 1/2 inch in this case, but it would be your bracelet size exact, you know, so that it meets here in the middle, and then whatever overlap you need. So if you have a big snap, you know, when I teach you about the button, you'll figure out the button width and into that. So yeah, so that's, you need that, and you need a piece of, this is, remember I said those little tiny scraps of micro suede, keep them because you never know what you're going to need them for. Well, this is one of the places that you need them for. So this is just a little 1/2 inch square of micro suede that I'm going to actually sew on to this piece to finish this one set of ends on this one side. So all I'm going to literally do is I'm going to take these ends down like this, and I know it's going to sound funny, but I tend to use like a tacky glue or a white glue. But you don't even have to do that. And I'm going to take this piece here, and then I'm going to get a needle and thread, and I'm going to whip stitch it on. So get a little piece of microsuede or a backing of materials you want. You can use a little piece of leather. You can use even felt if it's a teenager, you don't want it to be as permanent. This will hold up for wear and tear, and it feels nice because this is actually what's going to go against this part of your wrist. So this will be down first. You're going to put the snap on the other side of the beadwork, and that'll be your top side of your beadwork. That's the other thing, is that you need to figure out if you have a top side and a bottom back side. If one side looks nicer than the other side for whatever reason, then you need to make sure that this is the inside of your bracelet. So, and let's say you're doing a loomed woven piece with beads and lots of woven thread colors and stuff, and I've done one before and posted it, and you can see that on my Facebook page and in my Instagram page. You can see my bead woven piece. And maybe I have a preferable side, so if I do, then this would work perfectly for what I'm doing. The other option is, before I took it off the loom, I could have actually taken that end and made myself a little salvage end by going back and forth, and I'll show you that at a later date with another method of closure. We have so many methods of closure. So yeah, I started writing a list and was like, okay, just do one at a time, one at a time. This is actually going to give you two. You could actually do this on both ends and then sew a little hook and eyes to hook and eye them together. Or you could just, as you're sewing it in, you could put in a piece of leather that comes through. Bead a loop and then on the other side put a button on, and you'd have to have the space for it. There's lots of, as you can see, way too many possibilities for me to share everything with you, and my brain starts to go 100 miles an hour thinking of all the things I want to share with you guys and I want to tell you, and I just have to keep it simple. All right, so I'm gonna get my needle and thread ready. Gonna get this set up, get the camera a lot tighter so you can see what's going on, and we'll go from there. Okay, in case I didn't mention it, I'm using the same CLon size D thread, or the fine, yeah, it's the D stuff, not the fine stuff, the D stuff. That same as Limo, basically. I'm using that to sew this on because I have it out already. So yeah, whatever works. So there we go. Okay. So I'm gonna just chuck some glue on there, and this is actually, I'm gonna use, it's called Okay to Wash It. And basically, so if I get it wet, it's not a problem, and it's gonna just glue this to the material more than it's gonna glue it to the beads. And I don't want a lot, I'm just gonna put a little bit. This is Aleene's. You could use tacky glue. Again, I don't want the glue to come to the front, and I want to make sure these are all laying flat in there. Okay, put my little square on, make sure it fits. So this is what I'm checking to make sure it fits. I don't want to see how I can see the threads on the edge there? I don't want to see that, so I'm going to pull those threads down. Pull the threads down so that you have, focus here so you can see this. So my threads end up getting pulled down. This is the black material here, and this is the end of my beadwork. So I pull my threads down, and as I go, I'm going to actually start on this top edge. It'll be easier for you guys. And then as I go along here, I'm going to sew into these last beads here as I go, and it'll make sure that that thread's on the inside, so it literally has a microsuede finished edge. Okay, so I have a knot in my thread, and I'm just going to take it and put the knot in the microsuede, and you have to make sure you grab enough microsuede like we always did. And I know this is black on black, that's not enough, so I need more. Okay, I don't know if you can see how far I am from the corner, My needle's there. So if you watch my fingernail, you know, I'm quite a ways in from the corner. And so that my knot will be buried on the inside. So it's inside the microsuede. I'm going to put this on so that it's sitting a little bit more straight, because right now it's not straight and I don't want it to dry that way. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is find my end bead, my last bead, and I'm going to go in my end bead. And this black on black is like tough. It'll be easier once I get past these black beads. There we go. Found the black bead, went in the black bead. So I'm going to go in a bead, then I'm going to come back through the microsuede, just like you're sewing on the back if you're doing a bead embroidery piece. And if you guys haven't done a bead embroidery piece, then go check my videos out on that too. So I'm going in the next bead, and I'm basically just whip stitching is what I'm doing. I'm just making sure I'm grabbing enough of the edging of the microsuede each time as I do this. And hopefully it's focused enough. And I should have probably done a sample piece just to show you in funky colors, but I hate wasting microsuede. So basically I'm just going through each bead one at a time, making sure I'm not catching my thread, and then I come from underneath the backing, and right where the bead, where my thread's coming out, I come in and I grab a piece of the backing like I would as if I was sewing it together, so that I have, and it makes this nice beautiful edge on the outside. Now I can see how I can see the black threads there. I can take them and pull them, so I can take this and hold this and pull them as I go. I've got a little bit of time before this glue dries so that I don't see those black threads. They're going to get hidden in, and it also is going to secure them inside of this little packet that I'm making. Isn't this great? So yeah, I'm just going to continue to stitch across. So I just did the blue one, so I'm going to do the red one now. And then I'm going to go into the back. Just grabbing a bite of the back, and this is all matching, so and see how I just took that and went, where's my next bead? That I have to go to this one, to the orange one. And then I'm gonna, and I'm always doing a single thread. It doesn't need a double thread. And this is a really great way to hide your ends, and it's a really great closure if you want to do, you know, other things. You can take the flat lacing if you wanted to and sew it onto this and make a loop for a closure, and then once you sew it onto that, then do this sandwich, and it would be sticking out and you would just work around it, or you'd sew through all the layers together. Okay, next one. Ow. Sorry, my finger, as you can see, I've been doing a lot of, you can see the end of my fingers chewed up. Pretty bad. And I just stuck it in one of the cracks. That really hurt. I've been doing a lot of looming, and when I do a lot of looming, I tend to get my fingers pretty chewed up. And sometimes I even have to put on, like, I have this sort of rubberized band-aid thing that I have to put on this finger here that gets chewed up until it calluses up. And it will callus up eventually, and then the callus peels because I try to put lotion on my hands so my hands don't look so nasty. And then when I put lotion on my hand to make my hands not look so nasty, then it peels my calluses. So it's kind of good and bad all at the same time. Okay, so I got to the corner. So now I'm just going to turn the corner, and I got to make sure that that last thread is really tucked in there tight. That corner one, I don't want to see that corner one. And I'm going to take a stitch in the corner again. Oops, I'll come off the film. Take a stitch in the corners and coming around the corner, making sure it's the right amount. And now I'm going to sew into this edging. I'm not going to sew into any beads, so I'm sewing in to the double thread edging, and I'm literally just creating a whip stitch. And I'm going to whip stitch down this side, and when I get to the here, I'm going to show you what to do next. And when I'm whip stitching, I'm basically making sure that I get between each bead is what I'm looking for, the beads at the top. So, you know, between, I went through that bead and now that bead and now between this bead here. So I'm sort of just each row of beads I'm trying to get a whip stitch in. Next. Okay, one more. Got that corner, make that corner happy. And then I'm going to take my thread for the moment and just put it through that edging on this edge side here. And I know there's a black bead against it. I wasn't thinking when I did these color schemes I'm making because I like them and because they're traditional sort of colors. The colors mean things. So I don't even think about shooting the video. And then I realize when I'm going to show you something that you guys can't see snot. Okay, so now I have the threads coming out. I have the top sewn down. I have the one side sewn down. It's looking beautiful. There's no threads hanging out. Everything's happy. You know, you can, from the front, it looks great. You know, not a problem. So now I got to get rid of some of these threads. So I got to cut the threads down below the row of beads. So I got this here, so I know where that row of beads is, and that's this row here. See that blue bead right there? That row there. It's got to be shorter than that row, because that's the row I'm going to stitch in. So I'm just being careful not to cut. Love my safety scissors. I'm being careful not to cut my thread and not to cut my sewing thread and not to cut my backing. All right. So I cut it lower than the blue one, but it's still a lot in there. And at this point, I can put more glue on if I want. So if I don't think there's enough in there, I can put just a little squirt of glue in underneath on the thing. And as long as it's not squishing out the front of your beads, you're good. Okay, and you can use white glue for this. You don't have to use like E6000 or anything, like just white glue is fine. So with this one, I'm going to pretend that row of beads, see the blue ones right there, this whole row right here just above, it's the one that see, this one's got a white bead on it. It's not that row, it's the row below it. So I'm going to pretend this is a top row. So if I fold it like this, see, I can pretend that that's a top row, like I did the top row. So I'm going to go through this first bead here, right? Because I already stitched into the corner a little bit. And then I'm going to stitch into my backing, just like I was doing on the other sides and like on the top. Then I'm going to stitch into the next bead, which is another black bead. Sorry, guys. So I'm stitching into the bead. I'm just whip stitching and then into the backing, taking a piece of the backing. And my finger's hurting, so give me a minute. And for me, this is much easier done under a really bright light, especially with black on black. So now I'm into the blue bead. And see how this is exactly like the top? This is how I did it, going across the beads. And I'm pulling the thread tight, but I'm not like yanking on it for dear life, in the sense of I don't want to change how things look. So when you see it, it's down, it's not going anywhere on the piece that I've already sewn, and you can't see anything from the front, everything looks good. So I'm going to continue sewing. I'm going to sew the last one, and when I get to the corner here, I'm going to show you how I bury a knot, and that's it. Okay, so I'm back and I've got it all sewn on. Everything's good, other than I got some glue on the outside. Bad me, because I'm trying to do a video and I'm hurrying. So yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna take this through. A couple of things you can do. One is you can do a knot right against the edge here, but I realized something. I still have this on my snap. We could do it separately. Let's do it separately. Okay, so what I would do probably is take I'm taking my stitch here. Trying to. I sewn this on so well I can't. There we go. So I've got a stitch here. So I'm going to actually run it through once, twice to make a surgeon's knot. And I don't mind continuing on with the same thread as long as I protect. I've knotted it, so even if the other piece got cut, let's say the snap manages to cut off this, the thread up here, then I would still have the knot in here securing this. So now I'm going to take it between the layers, and I know it's going to gummy up my needle, but I'm going to stick it up through the beadwork, somewhere around the second row. I'm trying to come up somewhere around the second row of beadwork, because that's where the edge of the snap's going to go. So I'm flipping it over. This is my front side now. Yay, my front side of my beadwork. I have the thread coming out of it, and I have to put my snap on. So when you figure out your snap, you need to be at least 2 rows of beadwork away from the edge. And you can use a snap on peyote. I've done it on peyote. I've done it on brick stitch. I use a snap a lot, actually. I love this buckle thing that I do with I put a strap on it like a belt buckle would have, and then I use a snap, and then I have a one pointed end, one flat end, and I stick the pointed end through the buckle and snap it shut. It just means you have to make like a 9-inch bracelet, but I don't mind doing that. So yeah, anyways, so I'm coming up from underneath, and when you pull, okay, 2 things. One is make sure you have the right, snap your snap together. And get it to snap together. There we go. I snapped it together. Pull it off, knowing that which piece is which. So there's the nipple end. So that's going to go down, and this is going to come up. So I have it the right way. So that's number 1, because you don't want to sew it on this way because it won't work. But basically, there's a short. If you look at the 2 ends, one's shorter and one's longer. So the longer one, you want to be able to push in to the shorter one. So that means the hole has to be down in the shorter one. For most snaps, figure out your snaps. All right, so when you're pulling a snap, when you're pulling 2 pieces apart, you're putting a lot of pressure on the snap and on the threads on the snap. Sometimes people want to do this with it, where it's like north, south, east, and west orientation of the snap. My problem is that one bottom piece ends up getting all the pressure. So I want to make sure I put the snap on so that there's 2 bottom pieces. There's 2 bottom holes and 2 upper holes. And then that way when I'm pulling against both sets of threads. Okay. So I need to figure out, and I know this isn't, I need to figure out with the hole, when you put your snap over top of your piece, 2 rows up, approximately which bead is it near? And I'm actually sort of right, almost in the right spot. Close enough. Again, so I'm going to come up through the snap. So I happen to be 2 beads in, 3 beads in. And I'm going to check, because if this isn't the right spot here, I need to be 1, 2, 3 beads in on the other side. 3 beads in on the other side. So it looks like I'm pretty good. I have 3 beads on either side. So I'm happy with that. Okay. So I'm going to stitch this down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally stitch it into a bead or 2. I don't tend to like to use the exact same bead. The other thing is that you can, yeah, bead or 2 is easier. So I'm coming out of this sort of beside this bead, so I can come back into this bead, right? And I can take it over to the blue one. And I'm going to pull, stick my thing back where it needs to go. I'm only worrying about the first hole, right? And then I'm going to come back up through underneath. And I'm going to stick it through the black one again. And this time I'm only going to go through the black one. Okay. And I like to have 3 stitches on each of these. And this may take some maneuvering because of the beads and the backing's already on. You can stitch this on before you sew on the backing if you want, if it makes it easier, because then you go straight up and down. Whatever works for you. I tend to forget and always end up having to put it on this way, so I'm showing you how to do it this way. Okay, so now I'm bringing it across, and I need to hit the blue bead. So this will be my third. So I'm at the red one. So I'm going to go across the red and the blue. And I don't have to skim the top of the beads anymore because it's secured, but I'm skimming the top of the beads. I'm going to go to the blue one. Because this black bead is the third bead away from... did I change rows? I did change rows. Bad girl. I'm a bad girl. So now I'm sewing into the second row, and I should be sewing into the third row. So this is not how you do it. You do it in the third row. Same thing, but just in the third row. Go back up through here. And then I come back through the black bead and the blue bead. Put it back, the needle back up. And this is a place where you could, if you wanted to use Fireline, you could. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So sew this as many times as you want to make yourself feel secure. And you can always, you know, once you can't get into these beads anymore, you could back up another row. Don't do that, make a knot. Now you could back up another row. They're getting a little tight. Nothing spectacular, but okay, so I'm going to just do one more in this black one. So this black one's had like 5 passes. Okay, we're good. So now I'm going to run my needle. If you don't have the backing sewn on, you can put it back down through. If you have the backing sewn on, you can't. So I'm going to run my needle underneath the pile of threads. And I'm going to figure out which bead this is going to be. So this one will be the orange bead here. So it's under these pile of threads. So I can see the yellow bead is close. So I'm going to go to the yellow bead. Can you see the yellow bead underneath here? I'm digging for underneath one. And I'm just going to run it there. It's going to be under the snap. No one's going to see it. And then I'm going to come back up. I want to see how many I'm in there. Okay. I'm going to come back up this orange bead. And that's 3 from the outside. And I'm in the right row. So now I can come, ouch, up. I always prefer to go up. It's easier to get my needle this way than to try to get around the beads going this way. Now I can go 2 beads through 2 beads. And I just alternate between 1 and 2 beads and 1 bead and then the other bead. It just keeps it from like being totally clogged up with thread, and it gives me, it's not pulling all on the same exact bead. It changes the tension of where things are pulling. So as you can see, I have to fiddle around my needle to find the hole. There we go. So you got the idea, and you're probably bored stiff watching me sew on a dang snap. So sew on your snap, finish up, run your needle through these beads like I did on the first side, sew this one up, and once you get that done, I'll show you how to do the other end and finish it. I'm not going to show you how to sew on the other end of the snap, but we'll go from there. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do, you can put a bead on it or not. These are 6/0 beads. Because I'm doubling up these threads, I needed a bigger bead. And I needed a big eye needle at this point to put it on. I'm going to show you how to make this twisted fringe. And you don't have to put beads on it if you don't want to. It just adds a little weight if you like. So you take 2 threads. I took the first 2. I'm going to take the second 2. So I'm taking, these are the warp threads, so I'm just going to move the other ones out of the way. And this is by hand. If you were doing 20 across, it would take you a little while. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a knot up at the top. You don't have to, but I'm going to create a knot just to make sure that these don't slide down at all at any point. And I have a heavy bucket of beads that I store, one of the buckets I store my beads in, actually sitting here. on top of my beadwork so that it's like not going to slide around. So I'm just going to take this, just make a knot. Oh, actually, let me do the other style. I'm going to do an overhand knot. You can do either style. You can do square knot or an overhand knot, doesn't really matter. The big thing is making sure that it goes up. So I always pull the loop up as close as I can, stick my finger over the knot, and pull. And it puts it right up beside the things. All right, so now I have 2 threads. Doesn't matter which one. And you'll need to look at, see if I can get this close enough that you can actually see this. There is a twist to this thread because it's cotton, it's bound, it's, you know, plied, right? So there's a twist, and this one actually happens to spin to the right. So if it spins to the left, and if you go the wrong way, you're going to unply it. So you want to go the same way it's going to go. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to back out again. Okay, so there's my big eye needle ready to go up here, and I've got some white, red, and blue. This is actually red, it looks orange on the screen. So I'm going to take the one thread and I'm going to twist, 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 and I'm twisting clockwise. In this case, because of the way my thread is already, see, now I want to wait till I can do that with it. When I get it to that point where it'll automatically, as soon as I loosen up the tension on it, it'll do that. I'm going to hold that on, and then I'm going to take this one, switch this to this hand, and I'm going to twist the other one. And it's a little harder because I have to, I'm sort of doing this weird motion. I can see if I can back it a little bit more so you can see. I see my big bead box. It's a bucket actually. I keep all my smaller bagged Tohos in there, and some matched sets of colored sets of beads. Okay, so that one's got to that point too. See how it's okay? So that I have the 2 of them. You can see they already want to go around each other. It's like crazy, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist them now together to the right, to the left. So I'm going counterclockwise, and it's going to make a twisted fringe. See? And I probably over twisted, but that's okay. As far as going the other way, if you over twist too much, what'll happen is it won't lay. And at this point, I don't even have to knot it. It will not come undone. You have, I know you've seen it in the stores. That's what it's like. When you see fringes on stuff, often it's twisted knot. It's twisted without a knot. I like to put a knot on it because it makes me feel safer. And if somebody's fiddling with it, they're not going to undo the beads. So I got a big eye needle, and I got to try to find my way through the middle of it. I'm going to stick this, and I know it's too long at this point. I'm going to stick both ends through. You know, try not to untwist everything while I'm doing it. Sticking it up somewhere in here, and I need a different color bead. Let's go with the white one. And these are really old 6.0s I've had for ever and ever. And I put them in these little tiny baggies, and I hate these little tiny baggies. I can never get into them. Okay, so you're just going to stick your bead on. Ow! Jeez, with the big eye needles. I don't like them because they stab me. Literally, I always get the back end stabbed into me. I have a bad habit of. Okay, so I put it on. Then I need to take the big eye needle off, making sure everything's still twisted. It looks good. It's all twisted. And I need to figure out how long I want it. Do I want the next one longer? Do I want it the same length? Do I want it shorter? Let's go a little bit longer. So I'm going to put the next knot just down a little bit from the first knot. And I'm literally just going to do another overhand knot. Checking to see where it's at compared to the other one. Now, obviously, that's not going to work where it is. Take anything that you need. This is just a pin. Works just as good as an awl. And I'm going to make that go down a little bit lower than the last one. See? And that bead's just a smidge lower. All right. And then I'm going to go do that across, adding the beads as I go. And then I'm going to cut off just below that. So this is a twisted fringe. Now I'm going to cut off below that. I don't like to leave a lot. You can leave as much as you like. Try to leave about the same amount on both of them. Okay, so let me pull this out from under the bucket so you can sort of get the idea of what's happening. So what happens is it makes this beaded, this is how I'm finishing it. It's finishing the work, but it's also giving me this wonderful beaded sort of almost tassel. So the only thing left I have to do is if I put this on, so this is down, and this is the beaded fringe, let's see how it's going to hang. The beaded fringe is going to hang here, which is like really cool. I'm going to show you when it's done. And then I need to put the snap on the inside here. So again, going through the beads, I'm going to start a thread, probably tie off a knot on the outside and work my way through, you know, as best I can. Put on my snap on this side so that the nubby thing is facing up. Remember, we have to make sure it's going to go into the downy thing, so I need the nubby up. And it's going to go into the downy thing. And if you need to check, turn it over like this and check. So, yep, that would work. Let me get these threads out of the way. So you can see what's happening, right? Isn't that lovely? So much fun to wear. And you can put as many beads as you want or no beads on there. You know, if you have a 20 strand bracelet, it's like super awesome. I just love it. I love the way it looks. So I'm going to finish doing these. I'll show you one more. Let me show you one more because I know somebody's going to say, I wish you'd show me again. So let me show you one more. I'll get it under the bucket again. I know my videos are long, but because I show you guys a couple of times because I really want you to see how I'm doing this. So way too much information probably, but okay, so I'm taking my two here. I've got my next two threads. Move the other ones out of the way. And if you don't have an even number of threads, you can, what I tend to do is if there's an odd number, I do the 3 threads in the middle together as one. So I have 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and then if I have 3 in the middle, it would be 3, but I have an even number here. So I'm good, I checked. Remember, we counted the threads. Okay, stick it through. Now I have that loop. So I'm going to hold on to that loop and I'm going to pull it down. I usually leave myself a little more than that, but I'm pulling it down so that the loop is against the bracelet. So the loop is right against the bracelet. Then I stick my finger there and pull. That sticks the knot in the perfect place. Love it. And then I start twisting. So let's back out for the twist. So you can see what I'm doing. You see my beads laying around. So I'm taking my fingers and I'm just twirling it in my fingers. Super easy. See, now I got the thing happening. It doesn't take long because this is already twisted ply, see? And see how this one looks like it's coming apart? So I want to double check to see. I don't want to unply it. And we have to do this one the other way. So that's you have to do them both the same way. So your first one can either be both left or both right. So either this way around or this way around, but both of them have to be the same, and then you do the opposite way to get them to twist each other, and then you end up with a twisted cord. Okay. I think I just twisted it too much. It wasn't liking me. Yeah, it's fine. So then I just hold on to this one with it's twisted with one hand, and I take the other hand, and I just use this as sort of a way to stop the twisting while I re-grab this one. I'm doing the second cord now. Okay, I've got some stuff going on. I'm good. So now I take the two of them together, and you'll be able to see the twist. But see, I don't know if you can see the twist as it's coming into the cord. Twist it, and then I let it go, and it stays twisted. Let me zoom super in. Oh, let me see if I can get you a shot of the twisted cord so you can actually see it. That's as far as I can zoom in. See how it's twisted? And it will stay twisted. I think it's amazing. And it's a fun, especially with all the tassels and everything everybody's loving right now, and everybody's into tassels and dangles and things hanging, and you know, that's the in thing. This is an old school way of finishing beadwork. Really, really old school. So you can see, I would put another bead on with my great big eye needle, you know, make the knot, where I want the knot to be, cut off the excess and continue on. I'm going to do this all the way across, and you're going to have this twisted beaded fringe to be on the one side of your bracelet, and I will come back and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I'm all done. I wanted to show you this is it snapped up, so you have this here, and you just unsnap it. You could use a magnet there. There's lots of other things you could use, but I love the way this looks. And you've got the piece here. Now, traditionally, this would be left. This band would be used for like a headband. It would be much wider, and these pieces would be much longer. You make it a longer piece, and you can even do it nowadays. And these pieces here then could be tied together at the back to make the headband, and then you'd have all this hanging down the back. It's lots of fun. You'd have all this hanging. You know, if you think about it as a headband, this, if you tied the two ends together and they both had these on it and you didn't do the snap at all, this is what you'd tie together at the back, and you'd have this wonderful headband for your head. So you can see, starting to see now, you could use this as a hat band and tie these pieces together. So it's just a matter of the length that you make it, right? So starting to see some possibilities. I hope you are. If you are, you're seeing a possibility that I didn't mention, or it made your creative juices go, oh, I could do this, then, you know, don't hesitate to comment underneath and share with everybody else. I'm sure they all love it. But yeah, I love this. It's just fun. And snaps, I don't know why snaps are not cool for jewelry anymore, but somewhere along the line, back in the 80s and 90s, we used snaps a lot. And if I still do like leather work, we use snaps for that. So rivets and snaps. And so when I have this piece hanging, I don't know if you can see how much it hangs. It doesn't stick out much. It doesn't get caught on stuff. Yeah, it's a nice fit for me. Fits me perfectly. I have a wonderful, you know, native bracelet. Isn't that cool? So yeah, have fun. Keep on making from Annie's Makings, and we'll catch you next time with a new adventure in looming. Bye.